Welcome back to Talking Tactics with myself, Xola and my partner in crime, Kaunda Ntunja, and we've been taking a look at the players and the key players for the Rugby World Cup in the lead-up to the big tournament. But there are a number of guys who will not be making the trip, and it could be for a multitude of reasons. Some because of disciplinary infractions, others because of injuries, others because they just, well, simply didn't qualify to play for whatever country they might want to play for. So this is a list of who we think are some of the biggest names not to make it to England. Please do come in and do make your comments. Tell us what you think and who would you add or take away from this list. We'll start with the French row. Brian Mujati, not eligible at the moment to play for South Africa, though he is, and we know he is Zimbabwean born. Dylan Hartley, certainly we know in the news has not been really good in terms of discipline. And Alex Kobisero, injury prone, and I suppose it struck him at the 11th hour. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Brian Mujati would have been a great addition for the box. Obviously, Kobisero is one of the strongest players as a prop in the world. And unfortunately, his career has actually been dogged with injuries. Yeah, since about 2013. Hardly disciplined, simple. Yeah, hardly disciplined. He's going to punch someone. That's why he's not there. The two locks that we've gone for, James Horwell, who was in with a shout, ahead of Rugby Championship, didn't quite make the grade buggies, but retired. I think James Horwell's loss of form over the last 2 to 3 years has been the issue. He did play well in the Rugby Championship. He wasn't great in Super Rugby, and Michael Check has obviously cut him. We've got Bakis Botha there because he retired this year, even though he had pulled out of international rugby before that. Yeah. But he still does. It still looked decent for Toulon, and he did well with the World 15 as well. And just very quickly, a look at the back three, and we've gone for the international selection. So at blind side is the number 6 for our South African viewers, and open side would be the number 7. Marcel Coetzee, again, injury hit him at probably the worst possible moment ahead of the World Cup. Stephen Armitage, we've spoken about him, and his non-selection for England has been an ongoing story. And Heinrich Brousseau bracketed in there as well. And, of course, Scott Higginbottom, who's always really good, particularly for the Wallabies. Yeah, I think the one that, for me, stands out the most is Stephen Armitage. The reason why I say Stephen Armitage, because the England don't have a fetcher flanker in their entire 31-man squad. And he would have been a valuable addition to the squad. Obviously, Brousseau and Coetzee, very unlucky not to make it. Yeah, and then Warren Whiteley, for the benefit of our Northern Hemisphere viewers, was the top tackler in the Super Rugby tournament. He's an absolutely wonderful addition to any team. And, of course, the two halfbacks, Nick White was a surprise to us. And we said it on this show a couple of weeks ago that he's not gone with the Australians. Maybe discipline, maybe team dynamics, who knows? And Aaron Cruden, injury. Yeah, I mean, Nick White was a big surprise for me. I mean, he's the guy that won the Rugby Championship for Australia. Rhys Webb, obviously, an injury to him on the last game before they go to the World Cup was so unfortunate. And Aaron Cruden, early in the year, he got an injury. A lot of people were saying he's the best fluff in the world before that. Danny Cipriani, unfortunately, didn't get a look into that 31-man squad, but he was actually looking very good in the games leading to the tournament. Well, he's always been a divisive figure, has Cipriani, particularly in England rugby, and we're not quite sure why. We think he's a fairly talented young bloke. And, of course, let's take a look at the two wingers. We'll go back to the centres. Cornel Hendricks, I've got on the left wing. Charles Piutau was another. And Corey Jane, yes, he got injured at the wrong time, but he was making his way back. But two quality wings. Out of those three wings, Charles Piutau, for me, was the biggest surprise omission. I say this because he looked very, very good in the games leading up to the tournament. The fact that after the World Cup he's going to go overseas probably counted against him when they had to make that final call, because the two wingers that they picked ahead of him had far less experience than him in Naholo and Milner Skada as well. Yeah, and the great thing about Charles Piutau is you could tell his quality, even though he turned out for a struggling Auckland Blues side over the course of Super Rugby. At number 12 and 13, Frans Steyn, well, he had a bit of a, sadly, a bit of a family episode which pulled him out of the Springbok camp, and I think that sort of settled his selection for the Springboks. Can play at 15 as well, quite effectively. He has that big boot, and talking about big, Manus Tuilagi certainly is. Yeah, Tuilangi's injury was very unfortunate for England. Jonathan Joseph obviously now will get his opportunity. Jonathan Davies, for me, is a big
loss for Wales.
Big loss for Wales.
I mean, his partnership with Jamie Roberts, don't forget that they were the starting centres for the British Lions as well in 2013. Yeah. I mean, Jonathan Davies took Brian O'Driscoll's place. That's how good he is. And unfortunately, he's not available because of injury. And
then lastly, the two fullbacks we've gone for, Israel Dag, who was very unfortunate to miss out. And we know he was in with a shout, but loss of form probably at the worst possible time in his career. And then Lee Halfpenny, what a match to get injured in, the last one before the World Cup.
Yeah, terrible. I mean, they're saying that Warren Gatland said he had to have a look at him. Can he go another full 80 minutes with his knee? And unfortunately...
And he was heavily strapped in that match already.
Yeah, he was heavily strapped. Unfortunately, he's not going to go. I think for me, Lee Halfpenny's injury means Wales are not going to get past that group of death. And Israel Dag, very unfortunate because now New Zealanders have only got one specialist fullback, even though they've got Nia Milner-Skudder, who can double up as a fullback as well.
But we'd love to hear your views because we've got, I suppose, a bit of a South African hat. There are a number of other guys that certainly were unlucky. Francois Hoogha springs to mind.
Kobus
Reinach, Jaco Kriel from a South African point of view. Elton Jantjies is one player a lot of people have said might have been in with a shot. So tell us who you think. Love to read your views. Thanks for joining us. Cheers.
Rory Best from Ireland as well.
And you know, if you cop a red card for tackling too hard, you've arrived. Okay, Franks.
No, Ben Franks, you know what? When this guy...